Hey everybody, welcome to the Orange and Brown Talk podcast. This is our preview edition. Dan Labbe, Mary Kay Cabot, Ashley Bastock in a hallway here at the Browns team facility, but we figured we'd try to do this on video anyway. We're going to do our normal pod. We're going to do some storylines. Lance Reisland will give us his scouting report, and then we will make our picks. We'll come back and make our picks at the very end of the pod. But this is a very interesting game. It was something we were talking about in the room, Mary Kay, about everybody seems a little conflicted as to who they're going to pick and why, and obviously we'll get to that. But let's get into some of these storylines as to why. What are you watching this week? What's your storyline for Browns Patriots?
Well, maybe because I just wrote all about it. It's fresh in my mind. But my storyline is, can Dillon Gabriel locate the passing game that the Browns need to be a viable and explosive offense? They really need to get the passing game going. He's really got to establish a connection with David Njoku, with Jerry Jeudy, who returned to practice today from a knee injury. He's got to get something going. He's got to generate some points. He's got to move that ball through the air, especially with the Patriots' number 2 run defense, which is yielding only 77.1 yards per game. So this is a game where they have to get right in the passing game. I think Dillon needs to take some shots. I think he needs to be more aggressive, not live in his passing fears. And then on the other end of it, the receivers, the pass catchers, they've got to hang on. They've got to win the contested balls, and they have to hang on to them. I think that's why he's dialed it back a little bit, because they haven't made the connection over these first 3 weeks. But it's time to put all that aside, forget about that, trust what you're seeing out there, make the throw, and have faith that your guys are going to come up with the ball.
Yeah, and I think I think there have been opportunities, some one-on-one opportunities, but I do think some of it comes down to, is, to your point, Mary Kay, is he trusting Jerry Jeudy to go win those? Is he trusting, right now it's Isaiah Bond, Gage Larvin, Malachi Corley. Is he trusting those guys to go win some of those one-on-one matchups? Now, you would hope that Jerry could do that, right? And then, of course, like you always say, we try to talk about this pass catching core holistically. So that includes David Njoku, who's been practicing, has a brace on his left knee, but he's out there practicing. Harold Fannin, all these guys, can they go win some of those one-on-one matchups? I don't know, but right now, Ashley, it seems like Dillon is hesitant to even try on some of these. And, Tommy Rees said they've got to get him comfortable. They've got to get him comfortable in the scheme, comfortable in throwing these passes. And this might be a secondary where maybe they can figure some of that out.
Yeah, and this offense right now is just so one-dimensional. And there have been other years where the offense was one-dimensional in the exact same way. I actually have been thinking lately a lot about the 2021 season when Baker Mayfield was playing hurt and this team was so reliant on Nick Chubb in the run game, and we were seeing teams put 10 guys in the box against them. Like, it's a lot of what we've been seeing in recent weeks with teams just going all out in order to stop this run game. So in order to free Quinshon Judkins up, and he's doing some really, really great things. He is, I think, showing why he can be such a promising rookie running back in this league. But Dillon Gabriel's going to have to start looking downfield. They need to get Jerry Jeudy going. I think Jerry Jeudy so desperately needs a 100-yard game right now. And to me, that is the X factor here, is can those two get going?
Yeah, and Mary Kay, I do. I know Kevin doesn't like to hear this, and I know obviously you never want to turn the football over, but I do think there is some level of, maybe don't be as nervous about throwing an interception down the field, because trust your defense, right? At some point, you do have to trust your defense, and maybe you will turn it over, and you don't want to turn it over 4 times, but maybe you will have a ball that is almost like an arm punt, on a 3rd down, something like that. I do think there's something to be said about knowing that you have what you've called over and over again, a championship caliber defense. Well, that means that maybe you can take a risk here or there. Maybe you can live with a guy picking the ball off inside his own 5-yard line on a deep shot. I think there's ways to kind of walk that line where you're not so scared of turning the ball over that you're just not even exposing yourself to any kind of risk at all.
Well, I feel like they overcorrected from last year when they threw so many interceptions. And Kevin is so giveaway averse that they are walking on eggshells about that. But some of the best quarterbacks in the NFL have thrown a lot of interceptions. And sometimes you have to live with an interception or two so that you can be aggressive and so that you know how far you can go. You don't know what you can get away with until you overdo it occasionally, until you take a little bit more of a risk than you should have occasionally. And I don't think they're doing that. And now you don't want to go too far the other way, have the pendulum swing too far the other way, and then you start just gunslinging it around and you are throwing those picks. You don't want that to happen. But I think you need to take some well placed shots, not worry about it, and give these guys a chance. I mean, you've got some really good weapons out there. And it's week 8. I mean, as I ended my column, it's time for rookie ball to grow up. And it's week 8 now, and you can't worry that, you've got Isaiah Bond, who's a rookie, and you've got Jamari, who's pretty new, second year, and you've got Harold Fannin, who's a rookie. You've got some good weapons out there, David Njoku, Jerry Jeudy. He has to trust those guys, and he's got to be aggressive with his throws, and he's got to be confident in himself. And then I remember back to the London game when Kevin O'Connell asked Carson Wentz to just trust him on that last drive. And that's what the Browns have to do with Dillon Gabriel. They have to give him a game plan that he feels really good about, make sure that he has plays in there and some deep shots, some explosives that he can really feel confident in. And then when he sees them, he has to let it rip, throw it with confidence, and believe that your guy is going to make the play.
Okay, Ashley, give us a storyline for Sunday and Fox.
Yeah, I think this one kind of goes along with Mary Kay's Dillon Gabriel storyline about looking downfield, because I think we need to talk about this run game and the Patriots' run defense. Because, again, we talked about it last week. The Dolphins had the worst run defense in the NFL coming into last week's game. The Patriots, meanwhile, they are one of the best. They're giving up an average of only 77.1 yards per game right now. That's third in the league. So is their yards per carry number at only 3.44. They have not surrendered 50 yards to any individual back yet this season. That's 7 games. It's the first time in team history, according to their game notes, that has happened. So you right now have a really good run defense versus a team whose main source of offensive success has been Quinshon Judkins, one singular rookie back. So I think this is going to be a tough test for this Browns offense, and if they can get Quinshon Judkins really going in any meaningful way.
Yeah, and I think it was important on Sunday, and some of it was the conditions, some of it was just kind of how things were going. I thought it was important that they stuck with the run. Early in the game, obviously it didn't work right away, but they stuck with it. They kept at it. And that's something that I don't think they did enough of in Pittsburgh. Now, obviously, you can't just bang your head against the wall and get 2 yards a carry for 60 minutes. But there are times, I think, when, let's see if we can find something. Let's see if we can keep at this on a drive and wear the defense down. So, Mary Kay, I thought that was a positive step. Wyatt Teller seemed pretty happy with it when he talked to us on that Zoom on Monday. I'm sure a lot of those other offensive linemen were happy with it too. So just this idea that you've kind of established, like, we're going to run, and if it doesn't work, we're going to kind of keep running at you. If you can find that balance, I think that would help.
It definitely would. And there are a couple of other things to note here about this. Jack Conklin is supposed to be back this game. He will be back this game because he has been cleared from the concussion protocol. So I think that will help you in your run game. Jack is very, very good in run blocking, as are many of the guys on this Browns offensive line. So I think that will help. But they are going against it's the opposite end of the spectrum in terms of run defense. That was the number 32 ranked run defense against the Miami Dolphins, and now they're going all the way almost up to the top of the league with the Patriots' amazing run defense. And again, as Ashley noted, they have yet to give up a 50-yard rusher. That's pretty remarkable. Now, they haven't faced a ton of really, really great juggernauts this season. But I do think this is a game in which they also have to stick with it. And what they should do, and they did this some last week, and they've done it a fair amount, is use that jumbo package as much as they have to. Go jumbo, do what you've got to do. They don't know if they're going to have fullback Aiden Huntington, of course, defensive tackle Aiden Huntington / fullback. They don't know if they'll have him this week because he's in the concussion protocol. And if they don't have him, then they have to use somebody else in that role. But this is a good jumbo package that they have. They use it a lot. And I think that they're going to need it this weekend.
Another interesting wrinkle, though, in all of this, Ethan Posick on the injury report today with an illness. So this is Thursday. That's all we know. But they were using Luke Whippler a lot in those jumbo packages as well. So I'm curious to see how that might be impacted if Ethan doesn't start.
Yeah, so we'll keep an eye on that. Obviously, that Friday injury report comes out. Hopefully, it's just one of those one-day deals for Ethan, because you're right, to your point. If you have to use Luke Whippler at center, that could be two guys now that you've used in those jumbo packages that you're taking out of the mix. I can't believe this is still on the table. If this were a draft, I'd be like, oh my God, first round pick. 1A is still there. I'm going to go with our old buddy Mike Vrabel, going against the Cleveland Browns. And look, I'm sure we've all been asked about this week, about the Mike Vrabel impact. Does he know things about the Browns? Is that going to help them? And I think he does. But I don't know. I don't know if it's that much different than like when Ben Johnson goes against the Lions. He probably knows a whole lot about that football team. Like, this happens in the NFL, but Mary Kay, I think we know. To me, yes, obviously there's some advantage there. He knows this team very well and very intimately, and he knows Kevin very well, so he knows some of those tendencies. But also, we just know, like, a Mike Vrabel team is going to play a certain way, right? They're going to be physical. They're not going to beat themselves for the most part. They're gonna cross every T, dot every I. This has been a Mike Vrabel team to this point, and he's got a quarterback who's playing really well in Drake May. We should mention him as well, because he's playing really great so far. So that obviously helps. But you're not going to lose this game because the Patriots aren't ready, because the coach makes bad decisions or mangles the clock or mangles his timeouts or anything like that. This is a very sound Mike Vrabel football team already.
It really is. And we've watched Mike Vrabel coach so many times over the years. We know a lot about him as a football coach. One of the things that we know about him is that he likes to beat you at your own game sometimes, right? I mean, he did that with Bill Belichick. He would find a way to be crafty and creative and beat you at your own game in some way. So watch for him to try to come up with something like that, maybe against Jim Schwartz or something, because he knows Jim Schwartz really, really well. Those two guys are great friends. He was the one who hired Jim Schwartz to be a senior offensive assistant with the Titans the 2 years before Jim came here to be defensive coordinator. It's when he needed kind of a landing spot after he was dealing with some health issues, and he was done with being the coordinator in Philadelphia. And Mike provided that for him. Those guys have the utmost respect for each other, and they know what they're going to get from each other. But Mike is such a smart football coach. He's crafty, and he's going to have some things up his sleeve for these Cleveland Browns. And I'll tell you, after spending one full year in the Cleveland Browns building, he's going to want to beat this team. He is going to want to beat this football team. Not out of any kind of a revenge or anything like that. I mean, he used to eat dog bones when he was growing up. So he was a Browns fan, the Akron native that he is. But he still is going to have some things planned that the Browns aren't going to be ready for, and vice versa. I think it's going to be a great chess match from between and among some really smart coaches, and it's going to be fun.
Yeah, and what I'm interested in, too, is like the Browns over the last few years, sometimes when they've played a real physical team, like a really physical, tough team, they haven't always held up against them. And I think this team, especially on the defensive side, is built to be able to hold up like that. And so I'm just going against this coach, this style of team, a team that, despite their record, is beatable. I just think this is a really interesting test for the Browns. And of course, it's a guy against a guy who spent a whole year in this building.
Yeah, and it's been, I think, funny to watch that it's been nothing but a love fest between these two teams all week in the lead up to this game. Mike Vrabel and Josh McDaniels over in New England saying this is the best defense they think they've faced this year. I mean, Mike Vrabel earlier on Wednesday in the week was talking about how good this defense is, just heaping praise on them. And of course, everyone here, Joel Bitonio, Grant Delpit, Jim Schwartz, Tommy Reese, whoever, yes, Bubba Ventrone, who of course played with him in New England too. No one has anything negative to say about anyone. No one's handing out bulletin board material. I think it's like Bubba Ventrone was the one who said like Mike Vrabel is like all the best parts of football
Yeah.
basically today, right? So that element of it too is always kind of funny when there's so much familiarity between teams.
Yeah, I think Mike and Bubba, when they're separate, would just say nice things about each other all day. I think if you got them together, though, they'd never say a nice thing about each other. It would just be like two old Patriots trading war stories and just ripping on each other. So we would see them talk sometimes on the practice field, and I just wish I could have been like I could have just sidled right in there and listened to what they were saying to each other. Okay, we are going to take a break. On the other side, Lance Reisland is going to join us for his scouting report. Then we'll come back. Still going to be in this hallway. We will come back and we will make our picks for Sunday's game at Foxborough. Welcome back to our Browns Patriots preview edition of the Orange and Brown Talk podcast. And now we welcome on, as we do every preview edition, Lance Reisland. Lance, how are you?
I'm doing very well, Dan. How are you today?
Doing well. All right, hey, let's get to it. The New England Patriots, a Mike Vrabel-led team. I saw you tweeting a little bit about them. This feels like a very Mike Vrabel football team already.
Well, you know what? It's funny because it's more on film. They're more of they're a really good football team. You have to beat them, but they don't overwhelm you with talent, and they don't overwhelm you like receivers from Cincinnati or Lamar Jackson with the Ravens. They don't have that. Drake May is getting better, but this is a team that plays very hard. Their guards are great run blockers, but they're not very good in pass protection. Stevenson's a solid back, but he's okay. Henderson's been getting better, but he hasn't been exactly what they wanted. Defensively, they're really they're big inside and small on the edges, so I think you can attack there. Safeties are very susceptible in pass, Hawkins and Woodson and those guys. So, yeah, it's a very, very Mike Vrabel team. They play very, very hard. They're very well organized. They're very well structured, pace. And I think, he has that kind of mentality and culture that everybody talks about. It's not what you say, it's what you do. And you could tell they believe in what they're doing. But they're not overly talented, Dan.
Well, let's start with Drake May. Obviously having a breakout season, sort of establishing himself in that conversation in that draft class as he's in the discussion now for was he the best quarterback in that class. Obviously that ebbs and flows as we go along, but it seems like he's very aggressive downfield. Obviously we know he can move. He's very accurate. I've been really impressed with Drake May from what I've seen. What are you seeing out of him?
Well, he's completing 75% of his passes. He's throwing for 1,700 yards. And the thing I like, he's 12-2 touchdown to interception ratio. So that tells you how accurate he is. But he does push the ball downfield. Now, the thing that I think is he's kind of on that tier for me where he's between a quarterback you can win with and a quarterback you win because of. He's not quite there yet, but he's pretty talented. He can make all the throws. He really likes to work inside the numbers, try to break these quarterbacks down on what takes them away. He's much better inside the numbers. He's got Hunter Henry, who's a good security blanket. He's got Diggs. He's got Boutte. He's got a number of guys who can do some pretty good things. Kyle Williams, kid I loved out of Washington State. So he's got some guys that could do things. I think the thing that's scary for me is that if you're a Browns, they're going to have to account for him with a spy on third medium because he moves his feet well enough to be that pain in the butt on third medium. So, like you said, very, very talented guy. They're not overly talented on offense, but he is really, really good. And he's got tremendous accuracy. Like I said, 75% of his passes, and a lot of those are in that 15 to 25 chunk yardage play. So very, very impressive. Stevenson's a solid back. Diggs is obviously a pretty good receiver. I don't think he is what he was, but they got some pieces. And once again, they believe in what they're doing.
So you mentioned Diggs. Obviously, everybody kind of knows about him, but the LSU kid, Boutte, he's a guy that caught a deep ball on Sunday. Is he sort of establishing himself as a downfield threat for May?
Well, yeah, he's got, so Diggs is Diggs and Henry are always available and they're very friendly. Boutte is kind of the guy that the Browns are looking for, that guy that could take the top off, but he's also a full route runner. He can run it from the slot. He can run it from outside. I think that's part of their flexibility is really, really impressive too. Diggs and Boutte can run inside and out, which makes them formation flexible. Hunter Henry does a great job. Like I said, they're massive inside at the guard. So they run the ball very well. It's just a very complementary offense. And Boutte is kind of settling into that number two receiver. He's at the Jerry Jeudy level, in my opinion, where he's a number two, and that's where he belongs, and he can really thrive there.
And you mentioned those tight ends too, and obviously for a young quarterback, that helps to have those guys. So Hunter Henry, a guy that I've always kind of liked. Austin Hooper, an old friend who played for the Browns, of course. He was one of Andrew Berry's first big signings. It didn't really work out for him here that much. But how reliant is he on those tight ends, and how do the Browns defend that?
Well, once again, it's a very Bill Belichickian kind of offense, right? So they're going to defensively, they're going to take away your best play, make the quarterback do things he doesn't like to do, and then on offense, they're gonna scheme it up. And the Browns in the Schwartz scheme, if they've had kind of one kryptonite, it would be covering the guys inside 2 and 3, the slot receiver, slot tight ends, slot receivers, backs out of the backfield. That's just tough to do in man coverage. So you can expect those guys, because they're shorter throws. It's a math, right? Shorter the throw, the easier it is. So those tight ends make themselves very, even Hooper at this age, they show their numbers very well. They get in windows very well. They understand coverage very well. You can tell those older guys are helping May too, in terms of where they're sitting in zone. And, the first play of the game, it's funny when you talk about like predictability. First play of the game, they ran levels, just like the Browns do every time, because that's what you do with young quarterbacks. You get them in rhythm. So they're predictable. They're going to play it by the best. But Vrabel and those guys will have some tight end matchups, because they're going to think they can attack if they can get Diabate or if they can get Hickman. They'll try to attack those guys in the pass game.
So let's talk about that run defense. Obviously, that's where they've been excelling on that side of the ball. The Browns, of course, want to try to run the football. They want to sound like that car that just drove by out here in the run game.
Absolutely.
They want to be. They want to run the football like they did last week against the Dolphins, and even better than that. Is this run defense as good as advertised? Is it more matchup based, because maybe they haven't faced a running game like the Browns can be when they're at their best? How good is this run defense?
Well, they're massive humans inside. Tonga, Williams, and Barmore are massive humans. Tonga especially. He kind of fits just that old Bill Belichick, Vince Wilfork, where not going to do much, but he's going to occupy a lot of space. He's 335, and I that was 6 years ago, because he's way past 335 at this point. Then they got a guy, Spillane, who, I loved him in Pittsburgh. You and I've talked about him in Pittsburgh. He was great. He's a perfect fit for Vrabel. He's tough. He plays the run well. He can play Tampa too. They're very complex on defense, zone, man, different stuff they do. They're in that odd front. I think the Browns can attack the edge with power, counter, pin and pull, the things they ran well last week, because as big as they are on the outside, Chason and Landry are guys who have 4.5, 5 sacks apiece. They're at like 250. So the inside guys are 330 plus, and those ends, those rush edges in the 50, they're light. And you can really, really attack those edges. They set them wide and they get moved around just because they're not very big. So there are some possibilities in the run game. Spillane and Elias, they cover a lot of ground. They're good tackling linebackers. But again, they can be had in routes. And that edge, you'll see, they won't have much success running an A and B gap, but they can have a lot of success on what I think they do best, which is counter, power, and pin and pull.
So in the secondary, and you look at their passing defense statistics, not great. I know Christian Gonzalez is the headliner there, and he's been in and out of the lineup. It seems like he's been questionable every single week. How do the Browns attack this secondary? And is this a week where maybe they can get that passing game going a little?
Well, yeah, so the Gonzalez is good. Davis, Woods, Austin, they're solid corners. I tell you where they can be had is their safeties. Hawkins, Woodson, Marcus Jones, Duggar. Jones is their nickel. Now, they do a good job of trying to disguise and act like they're going to give Marcus Jones a lot of help. But he's a guy that can be beaten. He can, if they can get Judy in the slot. If you go back, Cam Ward had a really nice play, cross field throw against Marcus Jones. But if you watch the film, all 22, and kind of dive into it, he gets run by a lot. And what they try to do is they try to help with safety over top when he's at the nickel. He can get beat. Now, they're all good tacklers. They're all good football players, but they can be had in the run game. Now, what has to happen is you got to get that run game going early and then work that play action. Try to get Judy in the slot on one of these safeties with their nickel and absolutely he can have a big day if they can get matchups where they want after that run game gets going, and New England has to commit to the run.
So overall, when you look at this matchup, obviously, New England record-wise, New England is 5-2. They're favored in this game. I think it opened at 7. It might be around 6.5 now. I haven't checked today, but when you look at, I guess, how much of when you watch this team, how much of New England's start is like this thing is real? They are this good of a football team. How much of it is kind of, obviously they beat Buffalo. They should have beaten Pittsburgh. They turned the ball over a bunch in that game, and that's one thing to watch here is Ramondre Stevenson and fumbles. But how much of it is, hey, they're really this good, and how much of it is like, look who they've played?
They're a good football team. They're well coached. These are the football teams when we go into a scouting report. I don't care what level it is. This is a team you have to beat. They will most likely, unless Stevenson fumbles it, they will most likely be lined up right. They'll most likely be they'll have great gap integrity. They're gonna, if you watch their run game, they're not always killing people. But I paused at almost every run, and there's never a free runner. So they're well coached. They're well versed. But talent wise, this is not a great football team. This is not by any means a team that will dominate the Browns, especially defensively. When I look at the biggest mismatch, it's Bradbury, Onwenu, and Wilson inside. They're road graders. Onwenu, a kid out of Michigan, is 350 pounds, and I guarantee you he's pushing 400. He's a guy who moves his feet well in the run game. All three of those guys are beaten badly in pass protection throughout the year. I watched, obviously, last week, and then I try to go back 3, 4, 5 weeks, depending on how much I can squeeze in, and there are guys that they can be beat badly in pass protection. But what ends up happening is they win so much on first down, so they're not ever behind the sticks or not as much as they'd like to be. I will say this. Obviously, they're well coached and they're tough. They have not played a defense like the Browns, not only with talent, but schematically the Browns dictate. And it'll be interesting because that's kind of what the offense for the, they want to do that too. The Patriots want to control the line of scrimmage, so it'll be interesting. But I like the matchup. I do. And once again, I told you, as we got started this year, I'm sticking to my goal with matchups. And this is a good matchup in a lot of spots for the Browns.
Okay, so that's a good segue into this. What's your pick for this game, Lance?
Well, I think it's going to be a little bit, the weather out in Boston, you're hoping is a little bit nasty. And nasty works for the Browns because it'll help that defense. So I'm going to say I'm taking the Browns. I'm taking the Browns 13-12.
Okay, a good, ugly, low-scoring affair. Browns against the Patriots. Okay, that is Lance Reisland. He's on our pod twice a week. You can catch him, actually 3 times a week. I always forget about the post-game pod, just in general. You can catch him on Tuesdays reviewing the film, Thursdays previewing the game ahead, and then, of course, he pops on to our post-game podcast as well, which we go live on YouTube at 8 o'clock, 8:15 on Sunday nights after the games. We go for about 45 minutes, so make sure you're on our YouTube channel checking that out, Cleveland Browns on cleveland.com. Lance, I appreciate the time.
Absolutely. See you soon.
All right, we'll take a break, and when we come back, Mary Kay and Ashley will rejoin, and we'll make our picks for Sunday's game.
Back on the Orange and Brown Talk podcast, back in the hallway here in Berea. Dan Labbe, Mary Kay Cabot, Ashley Bastock. Thanks to Lance for that scouting report on the Patriots. It is time to make our picks for Sunday's game. I want to say weird things happened in Foxborough with this team. Mary Kay, I don't know if you remember in 2019 when they went there and Nick Chubb fumbled twice in the first quarter. And on one of them, Joel Bitonio actually got flipped over and kicked the ball out on one of those plays. So that was weird. Was it 21 when we were there, Ashley? Like that game, it was like rainy and nasty.
Yeah, Miles called out Joe Woods after
it
was that. And they had just beaten the Bengals pretty handily.
Right.
No one expected them to get blown out, basically. And they did.
So weird things have happened with this football team in Foxborough, strangely. So we'll see what happens on Sunday going into the bye week, right around Halloween. This is like the wheelhouse for weird times with this football team. So, Ashley, you wanted to go first. You are up. Make your pick.
I don't know why I wanted to go first because I don't feel particularly great about it. I think I wouldn't feel great about it either way. And look, I admit I have been guilty over the last 5 years of hanging with this team throughout the week of prep and getting sucked in and picking them to win games. They end up getting beaten pretty badly. But I don't think that that's quite what is happening here. My biggest hang up in this game is what I talked about in the things I'm watching. It's the run game. But for some reason, I feel like the Browns are going to figure it out that this week. Maybe I'm giving too much hope to this offense and I'll be proven wrong on Sunday. But look, I keep thinking, yes, the Patriots are a 5-2 team. Their 5 wins, though, have come against Miami, Carolina, Buffalo, New Orleans, and Tennessee. And they've won 4 in a row. And I look at them and I'm like, they're playing really well. But they haven't had to play many teams with winning records, right? So to me, I just feel like maybe the Browns have a bit of an edge. They're going to be going into their bye week. They're feeling pretty good after beating Miami. And I think this defense is the best defense the New England Patriots have faced. And I believe they're averaging about 25.9 points per game. So, again, the Browns could take a hit to that number. So, as I said, I may be getting suckered in, but I am going to pick the Cleveland Browns to win this football game. I think it's going to probably be weird. I think it's going to be semi-low scoring. And look, the Browns scored more than 20 points, though, last week.
They did.
So I feel like I can pick them to do that and feel okay about it. I'm going to go Browns 23, Patriots 19.
Okay. Yeah. So maybe you're going to get this theme from all three of us, but I have been very conflicted this week too. And because I've mentioned this before, a lot of times I go into a week and I just have an idea, like I know how I feel about a game. And it's been pretty consistent. That doesn't mean I've been right every time, but it's been pretty consistent every week. It's okay. I think this is how I feel. Then it gets to Thursday, Friday. I'm like, yeah, I think I'm going to stick with that. I've had a lot of trouble with this game because I think the Patriots are legitimately a good football team. I think Drake May has ascended. I also think they aren't, to your point, they haven't really beaten anybody. The Browns have had a brutal schedule. This defense has kind of held throughout all season long, no matter what. So, Drake May, second-year guy, hasn't played a ton of football. Surely Jim Schwartz can throw some things at him that he hasn't seen before. I mean, when you talk about their weapons, you're talking about Stephon Diggs, obviously very good. They have the receiver from LSU, Butte, I think is how you say his name. He's becoming a deep threat for them. But then you're also talking about Austin Hooper getting a lot of snaps. So it's not like they have a ton of weapons. They've been okay running the football. Ramondre Stevenson fumbles a lot. Travion Henderson, a guy that I know I really liked coming out of the draft. It just hasn't happened for him yet. So they're still trying to figure that out. I guess this is a long way of me saying I don't think the Patriots are like this rock solid 5-2. They're definitely going to win the AFC East team. I do think they're really good. I think they're really well coached. And I think Drake May is really good. So I'm going to pick the Patriots, and I don't feel great about it. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if we're sitting there Sunday and the Browns force like a Ramondre Stevenson fumble and a Drake May strip sack, and we see a Patriots team that maybe looks a little different. Maybe they look a little more rattled, a little more shaken than what we've seen. It's just I can't quite trust this Browns offense yet. So I'm going to take the Patriots. I'm going to take a low-scoring game. I'm going to say New England. Let's go 15-13. New England wins this game. Did you say 13?
No, I said 19.
Okay. Oh, you said 19. I think Lance might have said 13.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to go 15-13 New England in just a weird low-scoring game. Maybe Drake May makes a play late, something like that. So that's my pick, and I'm not. This is one of those weeks where I just can't quite get a read on this game.
Well, we must say, of course, that we reserve the right to change our picks.
That's true.
By tomorrow when we tape a video with giving our picks, because this is a tough one. This is a hard one to pick. And I think it can go either way. I really do. I think it can go either way. I think the Patriots probably are ripe for a little bit of an upset here. I think the Cleveland Browns are riding high and feeling good about themselves. But I'm still not sold yet on the Cleveland Browns passing game. And because I'm pretty sure that Mike Vrabel is going to take away the running game, I'm not entirely certain how the Browns are going to end up scoring the points that they would need to win this football game. If they don't get 4 takeaways like they got last week against a bad Miami Dolphins team, it could be tough sledding for them. They're going to need those kind of takeaways, and maybe they'll get them. They've got some defenders that are playing really, really well. Tyson Campbell's been a great addition. Grant's playing really well. Of course, Miles is always playing well. Denzel. So they've got really, really good defenders to go up against Drake May and this offense. But you still need to score some points. And again, if you look back to the Miami game, the offense in its own right only scored 10 points. So I'm just not feeling it yet. I don't trust that passing game yet. Maybe they'll surprise me. But I can't pick them yet. Maybe I'll change my mind by tomorrow. There's starting to be a vibe around town. A lot of people in the media really believe the Browns are going to win this game, which that can always...
sometimes the way to go is to fade.
I mean, right now I'm like, I just got sucked in, and you two have held strong, right?
Yeah. So I am actually going to pick the Patriots to win this game, 24-17.
All right, there we go. Our picks for Sunday's game, like Mary Kay said, you might see a video on our YouTube channel, Cleveland Browns on cleveland.com, where we go the completely opposite directions. So those are kind of our official picks. This is always a little bit early. We record this on Thursday evening. It always feels a little bit early to make picks, but it is what it is. The schedule forces it upon us. So if you were just listening to this and you heard all that background noise and all that stuff, we were in the hallway in Berea. You can actually see it. Cleveland Browns on cleveland.com. That's our YouTube channel. I think I heard a dog.
There was a dog.
Yes. Okay.
Sorry.
Cleveland Browns on cleveland.com is where you can find it. And then also you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Look for Orange and Brown Talk. For Mary Kay, Ashley, and Lance, I'm Dan. Thanks for listening, everybody.